today's video, I have a really fun birthday cake idea for you. So if you're looking for a relatively easy cake to make, possibly for a child's birthday, then why not make them a birthday bear in a party hat? Okay, let's get started. Okay, so to make my cake, first of all, I've got a 6-inch drum board here. Now this one is just 1 centimeter in height, and I'm just going to pop my cake onto this just because I will be putting dowels in because of the height of the cake. Now I've got 4 layers of the cake. The first 3 layers are just vanilla sponge cake. I've then just got this curved cake, so as you can see we've got this dome on the top. Now I've just baked this cake in a glass Pyrex bowl, but you can also bake it in a half sphere tin. So these cakes just measure 6 inches in diameter, and as you can see it's going to give us that nice curve on the top. Now what I'm going to do is start to fill and stack my cakes. Now I've just got a batch of milk chocolate ganache here, so I'm going to start by just popping a small amount onto my board. And I'm just going to place my first layer of cake down, and then just going to fill this layer and add my second cake onto the top. Now if you want the recipe for the chocolate ganache, I will put a link in the description below so that you can go and find this for yourself. Now because I've got my 2 layers on the top and it is going to be quite a high cake, all I'm going to do is just pop some dowels in just to hold the weight, and this is useful if you'll be transporting your cake. Now because there isn't going to be much weight on the top, I'm just using some of the PME Easy Cut dowels. So I've got my dowels, some scissors, just an edible food pen, and a 6-inch board. Now this is just a really thin board, so this one is around 1.5 to 2 millimeters in thickness, but as you can see it's quite a sturdy board. So this is just going to sit on top of our dowels to make sure that none of that cake on top can go through. And just with a small spirit level, just check that my cake is sitting flat. Now the reason that your cake needs to be completely flat is because the dowels will be taking the weight from above. So I'm just going to start by taking my uncut dowel and just push it into my cake. So I'm just going to push it down until it hits the board at the bottom. I'm then just going to take my edible pen and just mark on there the height of the cake. I can then pull my dowel out, and just using my scissors I can just trim that dowel off. Now all I want to do is make sure that all 4 of my dowels are exactly the same length. Now if your cake is a lot bigger or you are stacking quite a heavy cake, you may want to think about how strong the dowels are that you use and if they're strong enough to take the weight. So now that I've got all 4 dowels cut out and they're all exactly the same length, I'm just going to push my first one back into my cake and do the same with the other 3. Once your 4 dowels are in the cake, I'm just going to pop a small amount of the ganache just on top of those, just so we can stick our cake board down. So I'm going to pop another small amount of that ganache on there and just stack my other 2 levels and just pop our dome on the top. Now once the cake has been stacked and filled, I'm just going to put a coating of that chocolate ganache all around the outside. Now I'm just going to go in with my metal scraping tool and just make sure that ganache is nice and smooth on the outside of the cake. Now I've got the sides straight at the bottom, but because we've got this curve on the top, I can't go in with the metal smoother. So I'm just going to go in with a piece of acetate, or I've just got my flexi smoother here, and I'm just going to run this over the cake. So I'm just holding the flexi smoother with a slight bend in there just to follow the curve of the cake. So once you're happy with how that cake is looking, I'm just going to pop this in the fridge just for the ganache to slightly harden so we can cover this with our icing. Okay, so while the cake is in the fridge, I'm just going to go ahead and make our party hat just so that it can start to dry. So I've just got some purple gum paste or modelling paste, and I've also made a template here. So I've just got a 1/4 of a circle here, so we've got a 90-degree angle, and each side just measures 4 inches. So I'm just going to take my gum paste and roll that out. Now I'm going to leave it at around 3 millimeters in thickness and just cut that out. I'm then just going to take my template and create a cone shape and just stick the 2 sides together with sellotape. So I'm just going to take some edible glue and I'm just going to run it along one of those edges and then just going to fold it up so two edges come together. And once you're happy with that, I'm just going to bring my cone shape back in and just place that over the top just so it will keep its shape whilst it dries. Okay, and the last thing that I'm going to do before we cover the cake is just prepare my board. Now, I've just got a 10-inch drum board here, which is around 1 centimetre in height, and just cover it in a white icing with a white ribbon around the edge. So I'm just going to roll that icing out till it's large enough to cover my cake board. I'm then just going to pop a small amount of water onto my cake board just to allow the icing to stick. I'm then just going to trim off any excess with my piece cutter, and just using some double-sided tape, I'm just going to stick that ribbon to the edge. I'm just going to pop the board to one side just until we're ready to add our cake onto it. Okay, so I've taken my cake out of the fridge and now this is ready to add my icing. So I've just got my icing here and I've just created a teddy bear brown colour. Now to make this, I've just combined white with some Renshaw teddy bear brown and also some Renshaw dark brown. So all I'm going to do to prepare my cake is I've just got some water here which I've put a small amount of icing sugar in just to make it sticky, and I'm just going to brush this just over the top of the ganache just so that that icing will stick. Now, once the cake is completely covered in the water, I'm just gonna pop this to one side, just while we roll out our icing. So once our icing is around 4 millimeters in thickness, I'm just gonna go over the top just to smooth it out so there's no lumps from the rolling pin to start with. I'm then just going to pick my icing up and just drape that over the top. I can then smooth that onto my cake at the top and just come all the way down the sides. So all I want to do is just pull that icing out slightly and just with upward motions push that icing on to the side. Now once that is smooth on the cake, I'm just going to take my pizza cutter again and just cut that at the bottom. Okay, now to smooth the sides of my cake, I'm going to use a combination of my harder plastic paddles and my flexi smoothers. So I'm just going to go into my cake as I would if it was a normal round cake, just around the side, just to make sure that is nice and smooth. And once I'm happy with those sides, I'm just going to go in with the flexi smoothers and just make sure that top is nice and smooth. And we also want to make sure there is no air bubbles left in any of that icing. And if there are any bubbles, you just want to pierce those with a pin and just flatten that icing back down onto the cake. Okay, so once we have our teddy bear head shape, I just want to transfer this onto the board just so that we can add the rest of his features. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is create his ears. So I've just got a ball of the same brown icing that we covered the teddy bear in, and this one just measures about 1.5 inches in diameter. So I'm just going to roll that ball and just make it slightly oval. I'm then going to pop it onto the table and just flatten that down slightly. I'm then going to cut it in half. Just using my thumb, I'm just going to push into that center just to make the inside of the bear's ears. Now, once you've pushed into that, it might make it not quite straight, so I'm just going to cut off any excess. So I'm going to do exactly the same to the other side, and I can then just use some edible glue just to push these on to the side of my cake. Okay, so for the front of his face, I'm just going to create the section where his mouth goes and also where his nose goes. So I've just got a ball of light coloured brown icing here, and this is more of an ivory colour. So I've just mixed some of the teddy bear brown with some white, and I just want to flatten this down but make the bottom half just slightly wider than the top. Now we want this to be around 2 inches in height. So for his nose, I've just got a piece of black icing. Now this ball is just under 1 inch wide, and all I want to do is just flatten that down slightly and make a kind of triangle shape. So keep the top slightly longer, and with my fingers just push down, create a point at the bottom. And once you're happy with the shape of the nose, I'm just going to place that on top. I'm then just going to use my modeling tool with the pointy end, and I'm just going to create a line down the center and also just create a slight smile. Now you could just put 2 little points in at the side just to give him some smile lines. Now I'm just going to pick this up and just pop some water onto the back and just stick it onto the front of our teddy bear. Okay, so the next thing that I'm going to do is create his eyes. So I'm just going to take a ball of icing, which is around 1/2 centimeter in diameter, so around pea size, and I'm just going to roll that into a ball in the palm of my hand and just flatten that slightly. I'm just going to take my ball tool and I'm just going to push into my cake slightly just to create a small dent the same size of our ball. I'm then just going to pop a small amount of edible glue just inside and pop in his eyes. I've then just got some dusky pink edible dust. I'm just going to go in and just create some cheeks just on the side of his face. So I'm just going to bring my cone shape back in. Now this has dried nicely on our little template, so I'm just going to take the paper template out and we're left with his hat. So I just want to stick this to his head, keeping the seam at the back. I'm just going to add some edible glue just onto the bottom of that hat, and I'm just going to stick that in place just at a slight angle so it's closer to one of the ears. Now you can make his hat any colour, but I'm just going to use some bright pink to create some polka dots and also some turquoise blue just to create some ruffles on the top and around the edge. So I'm just going to roll out my pink icing until it's quite thin, and just using a circle cutter I'm just going to cut out some circles. I can then just go in with some edible glue and just stick these around my hat. I then want to make the hat look a little bit shiny, so I've just got some confectioner's glaze here, and I'm just going to use a paintbrush and just paint that all over the purple hat and also those polka dots that we've just added. Okay, so next we're going to work on the ruffles. So I'm just going to take my turquoise icing and roll this out until it's around 1 millimeter in thickness. I'm then going to take the end of a large piping tip and just cut out some circles. I'm then going to pick up my circles. I'm just going to push the ends close together and just pinch the back slightly to create a ruffle. I'm then going to start adding these first of all around the edge of my party hat. So I'm just going to add on some edible glue and just push those into place. I'm then going to take a pea-sized ball of turquoise icing and just stick this to the top of the hat. I'm then going to create the same kind of ruffles and just push these against that ball just to create a nice little ball on the top of his hat. Okay, so you can either leave your bear as he is, or I'm going to finish mine off with a little bow just on his neck. So I've just got some gum paste or some modelling paste here, which I've coloured in the same colour as the turquoise ruffles. So I'm just going to roll this out, and I just want this around 1 millimeter in thickness. I'm just going to cut out 2 rectangles. So my rectangles are going to be around 1 inch wide and around 2 inches in length. Now I do have a more detailed bow video, so if you do want to check that out, I will put a link in the description below. I'm then just going to cut out a smaller section, so it's slightly thinner, just over 1 centimeter, but the same length, and just turn over the 2 larger pieces. I'm then just going to add some edible glue just along that bottom edge, just taking one side. I'm just going to pull that over, just pinch that edge together and just flatten that down. I'm then going to do exactly the same on the other side. I'm then going to bring my 2 pieces together and just pop a bit of edible glue onto one of those. I'm then just going to take the slightly thinner piece that we cut out and just create some movement. So I'm just going to push on that gum paste. I'm then going to add some edible glue just onto the center part of that bow and just pop that smaller piece on top. I'm then going to flip the whole thing over and just bring the two pieces together, just chopping off any excess, and we're left with this cute little bow that we can add to the front of our bear. So here we have the finished birthday bear cake. I really hope you've enjoyed this video tutorial and will enjoy making your own birthday bear. If you have, then don't forget to give this video a like, and if you'd like to see more videos like this and you haven't already, then don't forget to subscribe to the Cakes by Lynn's YouTube channel. You can also hit the notification bell next to the subscribe button, and this will just alert you every time a new video is uploaded. I'll also put a link in the description below to other useful videos and to all my social media, so you can also follow me there. Until next time, bye!